Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. We're back with another exciting GESS Talks webinar. Today's discussion is going to be centered around the importance of inclusion. What does it truly mean? And how can we achieve true inclusivity in education to prepare our students for the future workplace? I won't give too much away, as you'll hear from our fantastic panelists shortly, but a few bits of information before we get underway. For all attendees, you can find the control panel on the side. There's a Q&A tab and another one for handouts. You can browse and download these files at any time during the webinar. Please feel free to use the Q&A, ask us questions, as the panelists would love to hear your thoughts. We'll do our very best to get through them all, but if we don't manage to, please don't forget that all the panelists will be speaking at GESS Dubai in less than a month, and you can meet them there, attend their inspiring sessions, and pick their brains. I'll just quickly pop up the link to register for free for GESS Dubai if you'd like to visit. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our chair and moderator, Catherine O'Farrell, founder of Incluzun, to introduce the rest of the panel. Thank you, and over to you, Catherine.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to our wonderful panel discussion today. I would like to begin by welcoming everyone and really encouraging you to participate. If you have any questions, ask us, let us open up the discussion across the Emirates and beyond. So today we will begin. I will introduce our panelists here. I will let them tell you a little bit about themselves, their practice, and how they're making an impact here in the UAE. And then we will move into our discussion topics. So to begin, Miss Carrie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Carrie Green, and I currently work at Maharat Learning Center as the program director. I'm a board-certified behavior analyst, so I've been working in the field of autism and other neurodevelopmental disabilities for a very long time. For over 20 years, I've worked in America and Ireland and in Dubai for the last 8 years. So currently, we do ABA therapy at our center in schools and homes, and we do a lot of school support by providing LSAs and help training LSAs in schools, and we do a lot of teacher and LSA training in general and school consultation. So I'm all around Dubai all the time in lots of schools and lots of homes, and yeah, that's me.
Thank you. And Dr. Ayesha, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Catherine. I run a center for people, again, with of determination.
I can't hear Dr. Ayesha. Is it just me or are other people?
I can hear her.
Oh dear, I can't hear. So my apologies, there may be an issue with my connection. I can hear you, Carrie, but I can't hear Dr. Ayesha. So let me just rejoin. I'll refresh and rejoin. 2 seconds, guys.
Right. So I'll continue with the introductions if the others can hear me. I run a center for people of determination called Manzil. We're based in Sharjah as well as Dubai. We've just expanded into Dubai as well. We actually are moving away from the whole people of determination group and moving into inclusive education. So that's the new focus and the way that we're expanding. We have in the past worked a lot on the employment in the employment sector, employment of people of determination. And our program was called PRIDE. It was an acronym for People Receiving Independence and Dignity Through Empowerment. And this empowerment, we thought, it comes in from education as well as employment. PRIDE was selected as one of the 10 best programs globally, and we were invited to be replicated, and we were invited to the United Nations headquarters in 2020 to talk about our program. we continue with that program, of course, and I'm looking forward to the discussion today around inclusive education. We do both. We do actually education as well as the vocational training we also work with the younger students, and then we're looking at employment as well.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ayesha. We're having a little bit of technical trouble from time to time, so I can't see Massrat at the moment, but once we get her back on, then we'll ask Massrat to introduce herself also. So my name is Catherine O'Farrell. I am one of the founders of Incluzun.com. And we are a relatively new company, and we started to fill a gap where we found parents were really struggling, and SENCOs and school practitioners, counsellors, they were really struggling to find quality learning support assistance. So we try our best to really get a good profile of the student and match that with a skilled and experienced learning support assistant so that we get really meaningful support in schools. And we've been really seeing a lot of really good outreach in the community through that practice, and it generates a lot of support and connectivity for our families as well and across the schools. So that kind of sense of community and connectivity has been really central to everything that we're doing, and I think all of the practitioners on our panel today demonstrate that kind of sense of community, and the very fact that we're here having these discussions really brings people together to get important topics to the fore. So speaking to that, as we enter into our discussion, I would like to ask the audience a poll. So Danny, our tech guru, is going to launch a poll for you guys right now. And the question that we would like to know is, what percentage of young adults who are identified with individual needs in schools, that's K to 12, go on to find meaningful employment? Now, take a guess. What percentage do you think it is? And we'll just take a moment to let everybody answer that poll, and then we can check. And I love asking these kind of questions because they get us as practitioners to really zoom out and think about the macro effects of all of the things that we're doing in schools. I think we often get so caught up in the day-to-day running of inclusion departments and of our centres in providing therapeutic support and providing educational support that we forget to really step back and think, well, what is the greater impact? So let's see on our poll, and we have so far 100% of people have answered 10 to 4. Okay, it's changing, right? 10 to 40%. We've got 46%. The large majority or the small majority of people are saying 10 to 40%. We've got 39% of people saying 0 to 10%. I'm going to challenge our panelists and ask them, what do you think the percentages are? Dr. Ayesha, what would your guess be?
I'd let you take that lead on that.
So sorry, I missed that little bit. What would your guess be as to the percentage of students who go on to find meaningful employment? Oh, I can't hear you.
I can't hear her either.
I think we're all struggling with our IT. Carrie, do you want to take a guess?
I think I couldn't hear either. I guessed 0 to 10%.
I think you're on mute, Dr. Ayesha.
Especially in this region.
Sorry, can you hear me now? Yeah, you can. Yeah. So, on some research that I had read earlier, it had about 11% or so that I had, but I'm not sure. It would be therefore closer to the 0 to 10%.
Okay, and Carrie?
I guessed 0 to 10% as well, especially in my experience in this region.
Okay, it actually, according to the UN, fewer than 10% of young adults who have a diagnosed need go on to find meaningful employment. So that means for us as practitioners, only 1 in 10 of our students, only 1 in 10 will gain meaningful employment. And that's a terrifying number, because what happens to them? Where do they go, and who supports them? They're all very burning questions that need to be brought into the light and tackled at every level. And it's not just an educational responsibility, it's a global responsibility. So with that in mind, Massrat has joined us, or well, managed to come online. Massrat, we'll briefly pop back, and would you like to make yourself an introduction, Massrat, so our people can hear who you are and what you're doing?
Yeah. My apologies. There's some problem. I came in first, but I just couldn't share the screen. Anyways, my name is Massrat Shaikh, and I'm an educational psychologist. I'm joining you from Oman. I specialize in identification and intervention, learning intervention for children with special needs and learning difficulties. I also specialize in providing educational technology solutions for children with different needs. Yeah, so this is what I have been doing, and I'm a consultant to most of the private and international schools here in Oman.
Super. Thank you very much, Massrat. So we have just been chatting about young adults who have been identified with individual needs in schools, and how when they advance to the age of third level or employability, that fewer than 10% of them are gaining meaningful employment. So with that in mind, I would like to ask you all, what do you think is contributing to the gap between education and workplaces?
I can go first if you'd like. I know just one thing that comes to mind is not starting early enough, right? So I think the thought needs to be there when an individual is quite young, and the focus on kind of daily living skills and independence needs to be in everybody's mind from the age of 6. Right. So obviously at the age of 6, you're not going to work on vocational skills, but that thought of independence and daily living skills, that needs to be part of any child's program that we're working with, any child who has additional needs. And definitely by the age of kind of 12, 13, that discussion needs to have between any kind of outside clinics that's supporting the individual, the family, and the school. And then around the age of 14 and 15, we really need to be thinking about what skills does this individual need to start preparing them for adulthood and employing any kind of curriculum that could help them, like the ASDAN curriculum we use a lot to help start looking at independence and possibly exposing them to different areas of vocation that they might have an interest in, to see what we can really start teaching them before they leave secondary education. So, I mean, I think that's one factor. Obviously, there's a lot more, like exploring and developing relationships with different vocational sites is also key. So I think awareness and starting early is something that lacks sometimes, that could be a reason for the gap.
I think that's a really valid point, particularly here in the UAE, where we are quite a distance behind our Western counterparts in terms of accurate identification at school age level. And you see great variety across the Emirates as well. So where we might be sitting in and around 6 to 8% of identification in Dubai, in the Northern Emirates, that figure is much lower. Whereas internationally, we're probably looking at closer to 15%. So we're still missing such a large number of our students. We're not identifying them. Dr. Ayesha, what do you think is contributing to that gap between education and the options or the ability to access meaningful employment?
So I think, of course, like Carrie mentioned, early identification is important. Also, equally important would be the fact that we need to identify what are the market needs, and then connect that to what we are teaching, the skills that we are teaching. Because what happens, and this is, I've been here and working for the last 25, 30 years. And what happened earlier was that we were so set on the kind of skills that we taught at those times. Talking about, the early days when everybody was only being taught carpentry and screen printing and blah, blah. There were these two or three different skills, and then that was it. And we did not go anywhere beyond that. And it was only later, and it is, more recently, what's happened is that people are identifying what are the market needs. Where is the employability going to be really? And then based on what is required by the market, the skills that have to be taught has to be connected. You have to have some synergy there. So that's one very important thing that that's a very major gap. The other thing is also a mindset. Even though there is identification, a lot of times parents would never, do not want to, or families do not want to accept that, and they keep pushing the child to go through the exams, the board exams, etc. And as a result, we have more dropouts. And rather than investing that time on skill development and looking at what the outcome has to be, we keep pushing them into. I am not against people taking board exams. I mean, I would like for our students to, for all students to take exams and to be able to get all the skills that they need. But we must always keep in mind the ultimate outcome. What is the outcome? As a parent, as a practitioner, what is it that I want to see with my students? If I want to see them employed in a certain way, then what are the things that I need now to be able to get there? And that will depend, it will have to be individualized. So we do need to have that connection. We do need to identify what those skills might be, life skills, like Carrie mentioned, other skills that are important for us, for the person, for the learner to ultimately be able to get a job and sustain that job. So, so those are the things I think we do not very often, and it doesn't have to be with people with, of determination or anything. Or education and the system itself needs to be questioned. A lot of times, even educationists and we are so focused on what we want to do with the child and what we want to teach, we are actually not looking at what the outcome should be there. So if this is where I have to get to, this has to be connected to this, but it doesn't. We're just so focused on what we are doing. And so I think there's a lot more. We do need to see what's going on outside of our own setups and what we want to do with the child.
I think that is so true. We work with a lot of families around helping them to understand that there are different pathways to getting to a similar destination. And I think particularly if you've come from, let's say, an academic family, or a culture where academics are very stringently valued very highly, it's very hard to break out from that kind of structured mindset that there's only one path to get to a certain destination. And that's compounded here in the UAE as well, because alternative pathways are not that easy to access. And we don't have the same kind of equivalency for alternative pathways like ASDAN, like you mentioned, Carrie, or maybe BTEC, some of the other ones that are available. And that narrows opportunities for our students. But I think what you're saying, Dr. Ayesha, is really valuable, because we need to kind of transport families to this is the destination and these are the steps we need to take to get there. It's like backward planning and really helping them to structure that path. Massrat, what do you think are the contributing factors for the gap between education and employment opportunities for people of determination?
So I'll just build up on everything that you all said. We talked about early education and raising early awareness, and Dr. Ayesha mentioned about the training and the skill gap that we see, and how do we train our students through to from high school towards vocational training and everything. But I also see the gap from the organizational point of view. We do need, I think, a lot of government initiatives. Not that we do not have them. We do have them, but when we do have more of like government initiatives to support people of determination getting into small businesses or supporting those businesses, employing people with determination. I think that should majorly help bridge the gap between the two. Other than that, yes, the organizational responsibilities of having more of inclusive workplaces, that should help as well, building on whatever everything that you said from the educational point of view. Yes.
I think that having inclusive workplaces is vitally important, and educating our workplaces in terms of how easy it can be to employ people with different needs, and how much benefit they can bring, the rich diversity that they can bring to a workforce. So Massrat, you mentioned government initiatives. What do you think can schools do to help to address that gap?
I think putting in, as Dr. Aisha was rightly saying, identifying the needs right from middle school, identifying the needs of children with different needs, and training, vocational training, or STEM education, building all of that, having that focus and the goal that they are moving out of school. It's not usually in schools, our goal usually is to get them to get through school or the academics per se, but not so much when it comes to what
I've lost Massrat. Is it just me, or have other people lost her audio?
I've
I,
lost her as well.
yeah, me too.
Okay. Okay, we can come back once we get reconnected. Speaking to that question, what do we think can schools do to address that gap? Dr. Aisha, you covered that a little bit in what you were saying. Carrie, what do you think we can do in schools, say moving through middle and high school, to address that gap between education and employability?
Well, I think two things could be done just off the top of my head. I mean, I think one is developing programs specifically aimed towards teaching pre-vocational skills and vocational skills in a small group. And a lot of schools in Dubai have already done that, are going down kind of a functional skills route for a lot of individuals in their school. Um, I think another one would be raising awareness and educating parents on the types of jobs that might be available for their children. In America, I worked with a few different adult programs, and part of what we did was getting them jobs in the community. And it depended on their ability and the availability of jobs, but some of the jobs, would have been bagging groceries at a grocery store, stocking shelves at a grocery store, setting tables at a restaurant, working in a salon, folding towels and things like that. So I think kind of raising awareness on the types of jobs available. And in Dubai, I have worked with DUA because they employ a lot of individuals with people of determination in doing different jobs. So I've gone in and assessed the individuals in those jobs, trying to help teach them the skills that they need. So it is happening here, but I think making parents aware of the different types of jobs available to their children, and having that discussion a lot, depending on in the schools, our assessment of the individual's actual skill set, what the individuals are interested in. The desires and wants of the family has to play a part of it. But I think also just educating them on all of the different types of jobs, if the vocational route is their route, rather than tertiary education.
Yeah, yeah. And do you think that having a curriculum like, for example, ASDAN, like you mentioned, that should we be running those as a unique offering, or should it be overlaid on a standard curriculum like the CBSE or the British or the American, say whichever standards you're aligning to under the US curriculum, whichever one you're aligned to? Should we have it as a separate offering, or should we overlay it so that students would have almost a dual pathway? What do you think would work best? Yeah, Carrie.
Oh, were you calling on me? I didn't know if you're.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't mean to. Just really quickly, I think it works best as an overlay because you don't. I mean, one individual can access bits of the mainstream curriculum, right? So they may go to some of the classes that would benefit them, and then the rest of the time might be spent with ASDAN. Whereas you have some individuals who the majority of their time might be on things like ASDAN. So for me, I think a mix gives more options to the individuals because, as we all know, I mean, it should be very individualized for them. Sorry, I'm talking.
Yeah, it has to be, doesn't it? And
Yeah.
Dr. Ayesha, what do you think? How do you think it should be? Overlaid or perhaps concurrent or even separate completely?
I would again agree with what you've said in terms. It has to be overlay. It has to be together. I, as a person, as a practitioner, believe that the moment we segregate anything and just put people away in a group, that causes a problem. You should have the ability to be able to move through and have different things that are happening, and you could have access to different. So accessibility is important. You do not want to be pushed into one corner, into one thing only. It's so For me that is important. The other thing that I would do actually as a practitioner is that uh, you know there's enough and more research. We are moving out of this whole only talking about people of determination here, but looking at all learners. The the kind of programs that we are doing as educationists right now has to be re-looked at. I understand that we have exams at the end and we do need to work towards that. However, and those curriculum, that's not changing quickly enough right now. So whether you have your IGCSE exams or whether you have your IB and whatever else, the curriculum around that is not changing as fast as the needs of the market are. They say that 40% of the jobs that are going to come on in 7 years from now, I mean 2030 is not that far away, and those we are not trained. They don't exist right now, and the curriculum is not training them for those jobs, and these are the students who will be looking at those jobs. And what are we doing about that right now? So even though the curriculum is not changing because of the your board exams, etc., but as educationists, it is our duty to ensure that we give them the ability to be able to at least learn. And so the things that we have to all focus on a lot more on mental health, a lot more on adaptability, a lot more on skills that help people that learners to learn on the go. Because this particular batch of students that we are now training is going to be, whatever we teach them right now may become totally irrelevant by the time they're actually out there in the job market. So we have to give them the ability, we have to give them the skills to be able to learn on their own and learn whilst doing things. So the skills that we have to focus on is not so much the knowledge, but the ability to learn and to be able to adapt and to be able to pick up as they go. So those skills have to be focused on a lot more. So, and how much do we're very focused on STEM. Yes, we are spending a lot of the school curriculum time. If you look at the percentage of time that we spend on those on imparting knowledge, what knowledge are we imparting right now? Something that's going to be quite redundant, by the time it is the information is going to be used in their careers. So we have to relook at the whole system. And even though we can't change the system as much, and we do have our students who have to take exams, we must be focused on a lot of these abilities where they can then learn on their own.
I really agree with you there. And it seems to go almost in a cycle. Like from in Ireland, my home country in Ireland, we have entered into a whole new era where we have a huge gap of skilled labourers. And going back maybe 20 years, skilled labourers like plumbers, plasterers, builders, they were really undervalued, and they were almost viewed as being kind of pretty much a less desirable job to work in because they weren't academic or, let's say, a professional career. And over the last 10 years, we've started to see a huge decline in uptake of those skilled jobs, those vocational, traditionally deemed as vocational jobs. And now we've got a huge gap. And they're seen as really desirable jobs because the people who are skilled in them have been so flexible, particularly during the pandemic. They were able to continue working. Those are jobs that are never not going to be needed. We will always need a plumber. We will always need an electrician. And I think when we look at the overarching employment market, yes, a lot of the jobs that we do now will be obsolete, but they're probably jobs that are not necessary for the function of life per se. Whereas skilled work, which is the work that we've traditionally allocated to those who are deemed as not as academically strong, they're the ones we need. And they're the ones that will never not be needed. There'll always be a demand for them. So I think that's a really valid point in terms of where should we put our focus? How can we teach our children to be skills focused as opposed to just academic focus as schools are demanding? And our schools aren't changing fast enough, that's for sure. I got really hopeful during the pandemic because we had such a big shift in educational practice. And I thought, this is it. This is the catalyst. We're leaving this pre-industrial era behind and we're going to power forward. Once the kids came back face to face, pretty much every school I work with, they're all going back to sitting in desks, learning, rote learning from teachers. And the teachers said, oh, I'm so happy we can go back to normal. But normal wasn't working. So it's such a shame because we had such opportunity to really advance in terms of having flexibility of outcome for our students. So with those kind of ideas in mind, what do you guys think are the barriers to schools shifting from that pre-industrial era of we need to be academic focused, we need to have students advancing on one track and getting academic results? What's stopping us from moving from that traditional mindset? Carrie, what do you think?
That's a really good question. I'm not exactly sure what's stopping schools. I think if you look at, I mean, maybe, and I don't know if this is specific to this region and this area, because if you do look outside of the UAE and this region, you do find, so like schools in the States, they vary depending on the school district and things like that. However, there are a lot of vocational programs in high schools in America that are, there for the individuals who do not want to go down, the university and college route, and they are preparing individuals to be, have a specific vocation like mechanics or plumbing or electrician. And, they're preparing them for that. So that does already exist, for a lot of individuals. So I don't know if it's possibly just looking outside of this and, thinking about all kids, not just the kids who, are academia focused and are going to go to university. Because from what I've seen, I mean, obviously I work, in the field of special needs here. So that's what I'm kind of thinking about when I go into schools. There's very few schools in Dubai, as far as secondary schools, that have an alternative route for these kids. And even those schools, I just found this out, the handful of schools that have an alternative route, it's still not an actual diploma that's recognized by the universities here. So I think there's a lot that needs to be done. And, looking at, all kids, not just kids with special needs, just all individuals, and developing programs. I don't know exactly what the barrier is, but I do know this region is very heavily academic focused, in all schools. So, I don't know, just possibly, looking outside. And I mean, this region is, it's always growing and evolving. So I have no doubt that eventually this will be in the schools. I think it's just going to possibly take a while.
I think you're right, and we need to remember also we're only, what are we coming up to, the 52nd? Is it the 50th or the 52nd anniversary? We're really young. We're really young, and we're moving at a stellar speed. Massrat, I think we're back in action. What do you think are the barriers for schools to move away from this heavily academic focus to a more flexible pathway for students to gain success and graduate? Oh, I can't hear. Oh, we're doomed. We're doomed not to hear you today, Massrat, I think. Am I the only one who can't hear? No. Okay, perhaps if we try joining again. All right, Dr. Ayesha, I'll shift the question over to you.
Yeah, so I think it's a mindset shift. The barrier is the mindset that is the real problem. And it is that shift that we need majorly. We are too focused on that academic degree that we want. Every parent wants that, every child wants that, and that's where we are. So we have to think out of the box, as Carrie said. We have to look outside and make sure that we are more focused, like I said earlier, more focused on the outcome and the final outcome, the destination, rather than getting that degree. Where does the degree take us anyway? Ultimately, if that degree has to get us a job, then let's focus on the job itself and then work, on those things. So I think our biggest barrier is the mindset. As you mentioned, that a lot of us are often very academic oriented. And that is coming from generations of, and I think that's not, I would not say that that's only in our region. I think it has, if you look at the earlier generations, that would have been everywhere. And then there, outside, as you said, now there have been, in the last, couple of years or decades, the changes have happened already, whereas we have not reached there, but that's a mindset shift. I think in terms of government push, in terms of organizations coming in and trying to push for that, that's already started, where we are looking at vocational training, where we're looking at alternative ways and giving that respect and dignity of labor to those kind of skills. That's really important. So I think a lot has to be done in terms of awareness and shifting of this whole thinking of what is the elite, and what would, so in the old days, everybody wanted to either be a doctor or a engineer, and now, if you look, even doctors are going to be, with everything happening with computers, the skill sets that doctors will need will have to be computer related, will have to be technology related. So you have to have that mindset shift. And that's so awareness programs and a lot of education of all generations to understand this. That would be the biggest, would be our challenge and what needs to be done.
And I think that you're right. That is starting in the UAE. If we look to programs like the Man Incubator in Abu Dhabi, where they're really embracing approaches to support people of determination. Like they've got really amazing startups on that program, where they bring a startup as an incubator, and they'll support them through connectivity across government sectors. They give them training and everything. And they've got initiatives like the Heroes of Hope, which is a young Irish girl is running that. She's got, it's like training athletics for children of determination. and bringing them through to really start competition. We've got I'm Inclusive, which is an app that connects people of determination to the workforce, and loads of those. So it's definitely coming from the government side, top down. What do you think that we can do from the practical side as educators and counsellors, practitioners? What can we do to support that kind of push from the bottom up? How can we engage with families? Massrat, I believe you're back with us. Can we try your audio? Let's see if we can hear you.
Hello, everyone. I'm back.
Yay! We've got you. Super.
I'm sorry about this. I don't know what's
No
going on
problem.
here.
There's always issues with technicality. It's absolutely fine, but we've got you now. So what do you think can we as practitioners do to support families in changing their mindset from having a very heavy focus on academics as a sole kind of career trajectory for people of determination?
I'll say more talks like these, the more awareness we raise, especially in our region over here. And as rightfully have been saying, it's so academically based over here. So educational programs, engaging parents more. I do know, working as a practitioner, that parents do have this bias against accepting for awareness programs, schools engaging parents into more of learning learning programs, basically where the parents get to know what exactly all this is all about. It's nothing to do with disabilities, but how inclusion can become part of schools. So yes, I do see that there is a lot of work that we as educators, going bottom up, can do that way. Other than that, also the bias that runs, which is the unconscious bias, basically within the community. So once we are targeting the community overall about people of determination and difficulties and disabilities, I think that all should come together and help.
Ladies, have you got any ideas? How can we tackle that from our perspective as practitioners?
I just have one quick thought. I mean, one thing is just to develop the programs in the school, the inclusion department or whoever is involved in this or interested in this, or again, we weren't just talking about special needs. We were talking about, individuals that are not going to go down the traditional route of university. The people in the school develop the programs with whatever resources they have available and start small. And I think when KHDA comes in and they see more and more and more of these programs, they're going to start thinking this should be the norm. And then they could start, expecting schools to incorporate this stuff more and more. Schools are already doing it to a large extent, a lot of schools. So I think just doing it, with the resources that you have, and then hoping that over time you get more support from the, top down, as far as, resources and managing it.
Yeah. And Dr. Ayesha, what do you think we can do?
I think it's been covered. It's mainly getting more, spreading that awareness of things that are already available. So, like MAN and other, the things that are already, the programs that are already there, the government is out there, and there's just so much happening there, different programs. It is important that the stakeholders know that this is available, because a lot of times what's happening is that families of people with disabilities or the organizations that work with people of determination, we are not aware of what's going on. So it is important that all organizations really equip themselves and know what's going on, the things that are available, the resources that are available, programs that are available, and then develop our own programs align with these and prepare people or make these more accessible to the population that you deal with. So I think that is important.
I think that's a really valid point. I know when I came to the UAE first as a Senko, I came first as a class teacher, and then when I moved into being a Senko, I felt really isolated in terms of accessibility to other Senkos and accessibility to information. And a lot of things that were going on I didn't know about. And I've discovered that a lot of other Senkos didn't know about. And I was really lucky to be part of the many inclusion networks that are now forming. But the original network was just a lifeline for us. And I think connecting with other practitioners is probably vital, because we can then disseminate all that information, all the good things that are happening to our families, and help them to know what's accessible, what's available, and how they can really achieve success for their children and for themselves. And probably most importantly, that we're not alone as practitioners. Like, we as panelists have just been talking before the session began about how good it is to have these discussions and come together and share our practice. And that's invaluable. So I think to close, I'll ask everyone if you would just like to give maybe one final word of advice or guidance, or even something that's worked for you as a practitioner, to leave our audience with an idea of how maybe they can move forward from today's session. Massrat, if you'd like to tell us.
So as a practitioner, I have really found that technology is an enabler. So if we look into technology solutions, there are plenty of options, plenty of solutions that can help children with determination and children with, learning problems to overcome their challenges and compete with the world out there. So using and adapting more of technology, I think really helps. And I have been focusing so much on providing edtech solutions to children with special needs, and I have seen fantastic progress. Also building up, STEM careers into middle school, focusing towards STEM careers, because children with determination usually are very good with technology. And they have really a strength towards understanding technology. So we can, really prepare them for future careers and strong careers, not just vocational, but strong careers using technology and building up STEM education.
Thank you. Dr. Ayesha. Oh, you're on mute.
Okay, so EdTech definitely is the future. We should all be very focused on the needs of the new world, and make sure that our students or our, the people that we work with are aware of what is available in the market, and are provided with the skills and the support that they would need for the jobs of the future. So providing that and getting rid of our own biases as practitioners, things that we've grown up with, we need to get rid of those. And the other most very important thing is collaboration. Collaboration amongst us is also very important. So I'd leave you with that.
Thank you. And Carrie.
Hi, yeah. I guess, everybody's, covered mostly everything. So maybe I'll just leave it with something that we haven't talked about as far as what practitioners within schools, or even practitioners who are supporting schools, can do, is to start incorporating different assessments, like the Vineland Adaptive Behavior Scale Assessment, the Checklist of Adaptive Living Skills, or the CALS, the Assessment of Functional Living Skills, such as the APLS. So doing those kind of assessments with the individuals we support, because that can give a lot of insight to what their strengths are, what their things that we need to work on in preparing them to leave our school.
I really agree. I wish that we could have these assessments in every school to inform our practice. Okay, we are almost coming up to the end of our wonderful panel discussion today. And before we close, we will open the platform to our participants and ask if anybody has any questions. And I believe Danny is going to join us again and lead in with some questions. And thank you very much to our panelists. We've had some really interesting discussion around inclusion today.
Thank you all. That was really informative. Thank you so much. We did have several questions come through. One of them was from Robin Newell.
Just waiting. I believe Danny is.
Can you hear me?
Joining.
I can hear
I
him.
can hear you, Danny.
Oh, you can? I can't. Okay.
I can hear and see you. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe you can
I'm going to reconnect
relay the question,
and join
or
you guys again
until Catherine rejoins. So Robin was asking, and I think Dr. Ayesha touched on this earlier at the beginning of the webinar. How do you manage families who choose not to accept their children that need support? I mean, does anyone have any suggestions? Or, Dr. Ayesha, you did mention that point earlier that, a lot of families actually push back.
Yes. So you see, acceptance is one of the biggest things, and not just amongst families and parents, but I have found that even amongst practitioners, sometimes we think that we are very accepting, and I have that, but we have unconscious biases sitting there, and it's not easy at all. So acceptance would be the first step in anything. If you're in the area of when you talk about when you're talking about diversity, you're talking about inclusion. Acceptance would be the first step. Now, how do you manage parents? There are several ways in which, when you're trying to get parents into accepting, getting them, a lot of counseling sessions, a lot of times just having, talking them through. But more importantly, at some point, getting the children, once you're working with the children and showing parents the abilities that the child has and learn and getting them to focus on what the child can do rather than what the child can't do. That becomes, I found that to be quite an important strategy or a tool that we have worked with. And slowly we've got parents to learn and to accept their children for what they can do and then take it from there.
Perfect. I don't know if anyone else would like to add anything. Catherine, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, yeah.
Massrat, I can see that you'd like to add something.
Yeah, just this that Danny. I'd just like to build up on what Dr. Ayesha said about this, because I come across parents all the time. When identifying children with different needs that parents are usually reluctant to accept. So I would just suggest to parents, just take one small step at a time. It doesn't has to be everything that you have to just jump into an assessment or a diagnosis or everything, but just take that one small step that you need to do today. Either it could be just go and meet the teacher, try to gather some feedback. So yeah, take it slow, but keep moving ahead. Do not just bring down barriers between you and the situation.
And if I may add, I think it's really important to work with teachers on this, for this shift in mindset, because so often when our teachers hear this child has got a barrier to learning or an individual need or a diagnosis, they immediately think, I need to differentiate everything down. And you're like, no, you don't. You need to keep your expectations high. Always keep your expectations high. And it's similar for our parents. There can often be such a negative connotation around certain diagnoses. For example, one of the most common ones is dyslexia. Parents think, oh, my child will be academically weak. Not necessarily. They may be amazing problem solvers and be really academically strong because of dyslexia or in spite of it. So it's really important to shift that mindset and focus on the strengths.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I think that also answers another question that was sent by Yuria Lamani, a primary school teacher from Indonesia. She was asking for, again, your opinions on parents who always expect their children to produce results without really digging deep into the actual learning process behind it. So thank you for that. I don't know if you'd like to add anything, or shall we move to the next question?
We can move on.
Perfect. And then Ursula Milner, she's asked, or she's saying that in schools there is still a presumed incompetence towards people of determination. How do we change the mindset of teachers and also employers in order for opportunities in employment and opportunities for real inclusive learning to be created. Would anyone like to?
I can speak to that a bit. I know that in terms of inclusive employment, there are a number of initiatives that are really working toward that. There's a really wonderful guy called Andy at Topland who is working with companies to educate them around accessibility and provide them with the tools they need to make workplaces more accessible for people with different needs. And I think people like us having these discussions can tackle the educational industry. And one of the first things I always say to teachers, if you're writing an IEP or you're modifying your curriculum, it is set your expectations high and try to move away from, as Massrat and Dr. Ayesha were saying, that bias, that cognitive bias where we automatically think it's a problem, it's a barrier, and look to the strengths.
Right. I would also like to add, we've actually worked with about 270 odd companies, and we've placed a lot of a lot of people in the workforce. So when it comes to the organizational bit there, getting rid of mindset, the biases there is not easy, but definitely happening. A lot of awareness programs have helped, but more so, what has helped is once we have placed people in there and helped with that process, and when people have started seeing, what the person can do, that's what's really made the shift. And then it's by word of mouth, where somebody has, they have hired somebody and then they've spoken to somebody else, etc., etc. So that has made a big difference in the way that people are willing to. And then companies who had initially only hired one person have gone in multiple, they've gone in and done this multiple times. So the way to get into this first step is to do internships. And that's what we do with our students, is that we actually place them in companies where the company doesn't have to hire them, but they go through that whole process and they understand and they lose their fears. A lot of times they're actually afraid of the unknown. They haven't, it's all these biases of, oh my God, we've never done this, etc. So internships is another good way of getting rid of these biases. And, first-hand exposure. We even do that with schools, actually. So, and there's not enough time today, but we'll talk about those programs later another time.
Perfect. I think Massrat, you raised your hand. You wanted to add something?
I just quickly wanted to add something to that Ursula's question over there about teachers, how the teachers' competencies can be improved. And I think that really is based on how well resourced the schools are, because if the schools are well resourced, teachers then aren't that hesitant to help out or to be more inclusive. So that's what I have observed. So, building up resources within your school really helps the teachers to take that step and, help out students who need that help. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. And I think we're running out of time, but just a couple of really just quick questions. One was from Mamta. She was just asking about the ASDAN courses. Where can she find more information on those? I don't know if anyone can suggest.
Yeah, if Mamta wants to pop me a message on LinkedIn, I can connect her directly to the ASDAN providers. I know that they are already in a number of schools in the UAE, and my Maximus in DIP I believe they are now their formal Middle East representative, I believe.
Perfect. Thank you. And also for Massrat, someone was just asking about examples of edtech solutions. Jolene, there's a handout in the handout section with Massrat's website, a link to her website as well, where you can contact her. But I don't know if you'd like to add anything, Massrat, real quick.
Just for everyone, I have replied to that on the chat for him, but to say that there are several programs which are specifically designed for children with special needs. There are language programs, math programs, cognitive training programs, and I use a combination of all of these, and I would say that using technology solutions and edtech solutions really accelerates learning, and we can fill up all of those learning gaps far better than the conventional method. Using technology, of course, as a complement to our conventional method of teaching, but yes, it does help. And all of the resources, if you would like to look at, it's on my website. That can give you an overview of the programs that are available. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, unfortunately, we ran out of time. Thank you so much, everyone. That was really brilliant and very informative. If anyone from the audience has any further questions or would like to connect with our speakers, please send an email to marketing@gesseducation.com. You'll also be redirected to a short survey once we end the webinar. So please tell us what you thought and if there are any topics you'd like to hear about. And if you've enjoyed this webinar and the valuable insight that our guests shared today, you'll be able to meet them in person at GESS Dubai from the 15th to the 17th of November. For more information and to register for free for all 3 days of CPD accredited conference content, please visit our website, www.guestdubai.com, or you can register through the pop-up that I'll send across now. We'd love to see you all there. A massive thank you to our panel once again, and also you, our audience. And until next time, please take care and have a great day. Thank you, and bye-bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.